We're going to be looking at Raag Bilawal, and first of all we're just going to look at the ascending and descending structure. That's always the most important thing, just to get the basic overview of the Raag, and then we'll move into a few different phrasing considerations, and we're going to look at the composition. There's a beautiful tintal gat that we can play in this Raag, and I'll just break down the different phrases and look at the different technical considerations for playing those. And then we'll be looking at improvising within that composition, but doing different improvised passages that are very tightly bound to that composition, so it's got a very particular shape to it. So just to begin with, the Raag has the notes of the major scale, all the Shuddha notes: sa, re, ga, ma, pa, da, ni, sa. But what we do on the way up is that we play. So that was sa, re, ga, and then we go straight to pa, and then da, mi, sa. So we're just missing out ma. So sa, re, ga, pa, da, mi, sa. And if that was scale numbers, it would be 1, 2, 3, and then 5, 6, 7, 1. Okay, so that's just the ascending in this position. Okay, so I've just got those 3 notes on the D string and then 4 notes on the G string. Now to go down, this is where it gets really interesting and where the real character of the Raag comes in. We play sa, ni, da, but then we go to the cormal ni. So that cormal ni, which is the flattened 7th degree, we come up to that note, so we have to go down to da, sa, ni, da, and then ni, and then we rise up to the flat 7, up to the cormal ni. So sa, ni, da, ni, and that's the most characteristic part of Raag Bilawal, and that's what takes it actually just out of the major scale. So it's not just a pure major scale, it has that flat 7th, and you're playing around with the juxtaposition between the major 7 and the flat 7, that minor 7th. And on the way down we can play the ma, so that's pa, ma, and then the ga, re, sa we can play on the way down. So all the way down it's sa, ni, da, cormal ni, and then da, pa, and then straight down ma, ga, re, sa. So just to reiterate that, you're going up, and that's more like Hamsadwani, that sa, re, ga, pa, so skipping over the ma on the way up, and then the da, ni, sa, okay, that's the way up, sa, re, ga, pa, down is more interesting and complex. Sa, ni, da, pa, ma, ga, re, sa. So on the way down, you shouldn't play sa, ni, da, sa, ni, sa, ni. You can't go directly to that cormal ni. It has to be sa, ni, da, ni, na, 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 na. It has to be in that kind of relationship. That cormal ni can be played just approached from da, so you could be ascending and then reach that cormal ni, but the phrase won't really feel complete until you've actually touched on that should ni. So again, if I did a phrase that just played cormal ni a lot, then it just doesn't sound like Bilawal, it sounds like a different Raag. So there's the cormal ni. But then back to the should ni. that major sound again, that shouldn't the pure major seventh, to bring that lighter sound. So you're always just contrasting the light and the dark of that shouldn't and kumoni. Just using that ma on the way down, always sparingly. It's not really a resting note. It's not really a resting note. It's just, it has to have that sense that it's the descent. You're going down. Play things like sa re ga ma ga re sa. You can play that sa re ga ma, but you have to then turn back from ma. Sa re ga ma ga re sa. More characteristic to play sa re ga pa ma ga re sa. That's more characteristic. Okay, so it's just important to wrap your mind around that as intimately as you can. I mean, I've known this rag for so long, but it's really important to just continually be thinking about that balance between the shudni and the kumulni, and that sparing use of the fourth on the way down, and just the natural way that the notes tend to represent themselves, that the ga and pa are very strong notes. So ga and pa, I'd say that they're very, very prominent notes. And ni just has a lot of strength to it, because it really signifies the brightness of the rag, and as I said, you're contrasting that with the kumul ni. So there's often an oscillation, especially in the slower passages, between that da and kumul ni. So you're playing around with that. You're playing around with that special color that and it feels to me that you can treat that note, that kumul ni, you can also play that on maybe more on the flat side. There's like a very expressive kind of scope there. So you can play the fretted note, but when you're doing the means, you can touch on the flatter side, so you're emphasizing more like the darker kind of timbre of that kumul ni, of that interval. Sound even brighter, so you're kind of exaggerating those extremes between the notes. So that's all in just the lower octave that we use in this tuning system. But it feels very juicy with this rag. It feels a really nice place to really play into the character of those notes. But the main orientation that we have is with the middle sa here going to the high sa. So we can play that obviously just on one string. So we can play it like that. What I do most of the time actually with this rag, and particularly this composition, is that I play this kind of box. It's not really a box, but that 2-string system, I play that just 2 frets higher. So you would have seen this in some of the other courses that we've done, when you're just starting on 12th fret of the D string and then moving on to the G string for the pa, da, ni, sa. It feels particularly useful in this rag to use that little arrangement, just like what we had here, because then all the different patterns, how you visualize it, you're visualizing the same kind of relationships. It's exactly the same relationships between the open D string to fret 7 of the G, and then 12th fret of the D string to fret 19 of the G. You're just using all the same fret relationships, so the way you visualize the fretboard is exactly the same. But let's just look at the single string, because it's always really important to know that, because that's how we're going to be able to join these two octaves up with each other. So we just have the Sa, Re, Ga moving from the 7, 9, 11, and then skipping that Ma on the 12th fret. So we go straight from 11 to 14, Ga, Pa, and then we have the Da on 16, Ni is on 18, and Sa on 19. So Sa, Re, Ga, Pa, Da, Ni, Sa. And then on the way down we have the Sa, Ni, Da, Ni, and that's with the 19, 18, 16, 17. So you see how I'm doing that with 4 fingers, with all the different fingers, so it's 1 finger per fret. Same as what I did here. Okay, so that will become embedded into your hand, so you can do that relationship, and that finger combination will become really second nature. So going down, Sa, Ni, Da, Ni, Da, Pa, and then the Ma on the 12th fret of the G. Ma, Ga, Re, Sa, so Ma, Ga, Re, Sa. Okay, so the whole thing going up and down on the G string. Notice that on the 12th fret, to play that Ma, I tend to do that with the middle finger, so that's the finger replacement technique coming in. So if I've played, for example, Sa, Ni, Da, and then my index finger is going to play from Da to Pa, I find that I'm more likely to make a mistake if I go and try and do the whole stretch with that index finger. Sitar players would really, that's how they would do that, just with the 1 fingertip. But on the guitar, with just the size of the frets and the way it feels, I find I can do it more accurately and more reliably if I put a bit of muscle memory in there. So changing to a different fingertip just actually refreshes to me where I am. It's like a little check mark in the descent of the scale. So Da, Pa, Ma, there's the Ma with the middle finger, and then I can play the Ga, Re, Sa. So I tend to do that actually around a semitone. If I'm moving in tones, then if there's a semitone coming up, I'll try to do that with 2 different fingers, because I find that they are the most likely notes to go wrong if you're sliding. If you're doing a sequence of tone, and then a semitone, and then 2 tones, I'm more likely to overshoot the semitone, basically. So that's just my personal little way of doing that. I think the most powerful thing about it is that it actually just helps me to remember the feeling of playing the scale, so it just becomes more intelligible to me. I can feel and I can track where I am. Okay, but generally, I'll play it with the 2 strings, because with this Raag, to me, the combinations, I just find it works a lot better like that. Depends what you're doing. If I'm doing more straight scale passages where I'm on that forward trajectory, I'm just going up all the way or back all the way, or maybe I'm doing a few twiddles on the way up or the way down, but I'm looking at just covering that whole octave. I'll do that on those 2 strings. That feels much more natural. But if I'm doing more patterns moving through the scale, like that kind of thing, yeah, just warming up, just trying to get those patterns going again. So that kind of thing, as I've said many times before, it comes more naturally on 1 string, because you're following a very logical step-by-step process. You're not worrying about string changes happening at different points within a pattern. You're just on this you're just on this single string, and then you can apply different numbered patterns much more simply, because you've got this one constant, it's that one string, and then you're just dancing around that and adding any different numbered pattern that you want to. And that's how sitar players, I think, are able to play those very varied lines in terms of the rhythmic groupings, because they're just on that single string and then very well practiced and adding lots of different numbered patterns. So we're going to dive into those a bit later, because those are going to be really important when we're improvising. So just looking at the guitar in this way with the kind of two-string method, which is helping more for the sapart style of tans. The tan is a fast line, and sapart is when you're just going straight through. Okay, so just things like, it's just kind of scale practice, right? But you can stop at different points. You can go maybe halfway up and then a bit higher, and stop somewhere in the middle. It's got a very clear direction to it. It's almost in a hurry to get in a particular direction. So those kind of things, they can work really well with these two-string patterns. And then more of the numbered patterns that I was talking about earlier, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You know, these numbered patterns, these different units moving around the structure. That stuff comes in much better with the one-string system. So this is, it changes for different rags depending on how it lays itself out on the fretboard. But these things are usually quite reliable, that if I go into a rag, I know that a certain style of improvisation is going to work better with one layout as opposed to another. And then you've also got the scale shapes, where you're using, 3 strings or 4 strings. I'll go into those a little bit later, but just to give you an idea of, once we've got the structure of the rag, then we've got these different ways that we can explore that. But we're kind of getting into the long grass right there. When I say we're getting into long grass, I mean we could talk about that a lot. There's a lot of different ways that you could explore these, and it's a very expansive subject. As soon as you have one idea and apply that, then another idea will pop up as well, just as that process unfolds. But I'm just giving you an idea of the kind of approach I would take to a rag. I'll start to say, right, well, I could do this with it, I could do this with it. But these are right now just all in terms of just the fretboard and the picking and the fingers and how the instrument allows me to, the instrument has its constraints, but it also gives you a very clear pathway. So I can follow one particular pathway on the instrument, and that will give me loads of ideas, and then a different pathway will take me in a different direction. So I'm really looking at this on a kind of technical level, just looking at what appears when I look at this rag, what things just come up just because of the combinations of notes and how that presents itself on the fretboard, Okay, so we will get into a bit more of applying that, but let's get the composition going, because then we'll have a really firm canvas to actually use these ideas in a more focused way. Okay. If you want to start one of these courses, you can buy them individually, or you can subscribe monthly to access all of them. For subscribers, there will be new content every month, including live streams where we can answer your personal questions and go into more detail about applying this material. So far we've covered Raag Yaman, Raag Bageshri, Jog, Hamsadwani, Kafi and Raag Malkons, and there's much more to come. This body of work is a culmination of the 18 years experience I have as a guitar teacher, combined with the knowledge acquired through studying the sitar directly, and then adapting that material using the guitar techniques that suit this style best. To create these courses and gather the most authentic material possible, I work closely with other Indian classical musicians such as Manish Pingle and Gurudeng Riot. I'd like to give a special thanks to my guru Roopa Panesar, who has guided me in the creation of these courses. Much of the material has been adapted directly from my training with her. Also Shakir Khan, my guru, who's been inspiring me immensely and continues to shape how I approach the instrument and this incredible world of Indian classical music. So come and join us at the Indian Classical Guitar Academy to start this journey. The first 50 subscribers will get a reduced price every month for the whole duration of their membership. So come and be one of the first guitar players to realise what it means to be an Indian classical musician.